All right, folks. I'm Bret Kinsella from Voicebot.ai. I'm the founder there and the founder of Synthedia. And Eric Hall Schwartz is my head writer, our head writer at Voicebot.ai. He's been doing this for a while. He's the busiest man in the AI space that I know. And one of the things that has been super busy and hot these days has been generative AI. And this week is particularly momentous. And there's a couple reasons for that, but largely it comes down to Microsoft and Google drawing the battle lines of the next big tech conflict. I even had a post in LinkedIn not too long ago where we talked about this idea of peacetime and wartime CEOs and whether Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai fit one of those models. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at in the coming days. But today, this week, what we want to do is we're going to do a new show called Gain Generative AI News Rundown, and we're just going to give you the quick commentary on what happened this week, and hopefully we'll get a chance for people to comment and think about what has been going on in the space. We're running this live. A lot of people watch it recorded afterwards. We're going to try this out for a couple of weeks and let us know how it goes. But without further ado, let's get right into it, Eric. So The first thing that I wanted to do is I thought we should orient ourselves before we get into Microsoft and Google and just talk about the juggernaut that is OpenAI and ChatGPT. And we had an article this week where I was trying to make this a little bit bigger. That's not working right now. There we go. So you can see that a little bit better. We actually did an analysis. I think we're the first ones to put anything out on this. OpenAI website visits. Look at this. October 2022, 21 million. November, 18 million. It actually went down between October and November. Still, like, that's a lot of page views for anybody out there. But think about that. And then December, 304 million. January, 667 million. When this first came out, we were like, hey, this is amazing, but maybe it'll be a novelty. Maybe after the holidays, it won't be that exciting. But it appears to be more exciting as the year has gone on. And if we look at unique visitors, it's also like a big deal, right? So we see these uniques getting up over 100 million unique visitors in January. UBS Security said that there's actually over 100 million monthly active users of ChatGPT. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing story, but at the same time, it fits with everything that's been happening with the technology. Just as people start to understand and see more of what ChatGPT is capable of what they can do with it, they're hearing more and more about its capabilities and want to try it out. And ChatGPT is free and doesn't require any downloads or anything, so it's very easy to play around with it. And every day there's at least a dozen new stories about people using it for all kinds of interesting or sometimes unusual activities. So I think it's just going to keep growing all this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, plus there's like 100 new videos every day, how to make $15,000 a month using ChatGPT. So all of the scammers and hucksters are on this as well. But one of the really interesting things about this space is a lot of value from the beginning. And I'll tell you one other really interesting thing. We looked at the Google Trends data, which we've been looking at from time to time around some of these topics. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. And if you look at it, there was a sharp ramp up in both searches for OpenAI and ChatGPT right after it launched in early December, a big spike. And then that went down around the holidays, the new year, that type of thing. But look at that, steadily climbed through the beginning of February. So this is no flash in the pan. We don't know how long this will last in terms of the really strong interest in it. But certainly it's something that's like momentous in the space. Now, the other thing I thought we should talk about is probably the biggest story of the week. And that is what we're calling BingGPT. So GPT-3 in the Microsoft Bing search engine. And maybe I'll bring up a short video so people can see what this looks like. Okay, I'm going to let people can watch this themselves. That's on YouTube. But one of the things that we saw initially there is conversational search, and this is actually not the first time we've seen this model deployed.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing to see how Microsoft has taken what, as we've said, is a very popular toy / experiment and made it an essential component of something that everyone uses online every day, a search engine. And it takes the capabilities of ChatGPT, upgrades it to another model that's even better, and then augments it with real-time information and other goodies that Microsoft can bring to the table, and really makes it sort of your assistant, your co-pilot, your companion online for not just finding websites with information, but for getting all that information and giving you things that you didn't even think to ask in a more proactive way. It's really going to be a big change for a lot of people online if they start using that.
That's right. And we've already reviewed U.com, Perplexity.ai. I mean, these are conversational search engines. People are familiar with that model from ChatGPT. But the other thing that we're not showing here is that Microsoft also showed the Edge browser using GPT-3 just like ChatGPT, creating stories, writing emails, and those types of things. So where we were sort of led to believe a couple of weeks ago that it was just going to be conversational search, it's going to be a new Bing, Microsoft's actually thinking they're just going to roll out a whole ChatGPT as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a component not just of going to Bing.com, but it's going to be part of everything people do. I think that there's an understanding in Microsoft that they have captured lightning in a bottle very much. The amount of money they spent on OpenAI and investment and licensing deals, there's every indication that it was well worth the price of the check to be ahead of everyone and have that branding and the technology itself behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the other thing too is what we should say is when we think about this, we wrote a story in Synthedia about this, like 11 things to know. And I just want to run down a few of these things because everyone's just like, oh, it's this new thing, it's available. Well, first of all, it's actually not available. So there's a wait list for it. And it's available to a few people potentially. There was something that Michael Stanislawic, I think, is watching right now. He said there was a developer version of the Edge browser you could download for a very brief time, and then they removed it, that you could get access to it. The other requirement right now is you have to use the Edge browser. And so not a lot of people are using the Edge browser. In fact, we have some details here. So it's like 4.5% market share in terms of browsers. So that's also a significant thing. And one of the things we might consider is whether this is a good strategy by Microsoft. And one way it is, because people are paying attention to Edge now and they weren't in the past. On the other side, if you're asking people to change two habits, one habit is to not use Google, use Bing now. And then the other habit is, I have to use a new search engine.
Yeah, it's smart because it means that if people are using Edge, then they can use the ChatGPT based services for things that aren't just looking for information online. It's going to be when they open a document, maybe Google Docs or maybe not, but when they're working on all kinds of writing activities and other work-related things, as well as personal projects, it'll be right there next to them, helping them out and accustoming them to using it for basically anything they're doing online.
Well, originally I was wondering if this was going to be just a replacement for using ChatGPT or GPT-3 inside of Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or something like that. I have a feeling what they're doing is obviously everybody knows what the value of Chrome is, to Google. Maybe what they're doing here is they're saying, hey, really the play here is to try to get people on Edge as many as we can. Because think about it, they're 4.5% market share. Let's say that tripled to 15%. That's a huge difference. And you add that to people using Bing. This is a very different scenario. Now, that's a huge benefit to Microsoft, and it's a really significant loss for Google because part of their benefit is the fact that they have that they have locked down a couple of these markets. A couple other quick things we'll say about this, and we'll move on. It does have citations. That's one of the things like Perplexity does really well. If you guys haven't tried that, I recommend it. It brings those up. You can access current information. And ChatGPT was trained in September 2021. The BingGPT has a direct connection to the internet. They have these other features like this creative writing assistant, which we weren't expecting. And they're going to make money from the start. And that was one of the questions that I saw going around LinkedIn. They're going to have ads with it right away. And it looks like there's also not going to be an all you can eat or all you can use model because there was a comment that everyone can try a limited number of queries and sign up for full access today. A limited number of queries sounds like potentially a limited number of tokens generated by that. And maybe there's a freemium model here or something. Or if you're a Microsoft 365 subscriber, you get it for free, or maybe it's a plus up, but there's a really significant option here. And then, for us, we think about this conversational search, this Copilot for the web. It's really compelling.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about how many people switched to Google Chrome because there were so many services that worked better or only worked with Google Chrome. And now Microsoft's saying, we'll take that model and extend it even farther so that if you want the best and the most comprehensive list of features for ChatGPT, you're going to be on edge.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that Alan Furstenberg is watching right now, and he was asking, like, what does this mean, like apps? And I think we don't know yet, right? But the idea here is that we've been talking about this idea of like composable apps and lightweight apps for a long time, and it looks like Microsoft is trying to make Edge an app as much as a browser, and that's a really interesting play. I don't fully understand how this play out. I haven't really thought about it enough, but it's a great question, Alan. And I thought what we would do is now tee up the second big news of the week, and that's Bard. Now, Bard is Google's answer to ChatGPT. It was announced both before and after the Microsoft event. Maybe very savvy PR in the way they got into that news cycle. But on Wednesday, they had their own event, and this was live from Paris. And I'll just share. I understand that some people couldn't hear the audio for the first one. Hopefully you saw the visuals for BingGPT. You can watch it online afterwards. This one, I don't know if you'll be able to hear the audio as well, you can let us know. But frankly, all I want you to see is the screenshots and show how this is going to work. So we will. So you can see that it's essentially a ChatGPT interface. If any of you have used Lambda through Google Test Kitchen, this is essentially the way you would expect it to look if it were on a desktop as opposed to on the mobile device, which is the only way to access it right now. So essentially this idea is they basically have replicated that. And this is very interesting to me. We might see, and we'll see some other things later, and you guys can watch that video. Google posted this a couple days ago. But they also have this idea very similar to the layout of what Bing did, which is you've got the 10 blue links when you do the initial search in the middle, or the main column. Then you have the side column where you have a chat generated answer that then has links, and then you can click into that and just be in that chat mode. So it seems like everybody's doing the same interface. It looks exactly like u.com, which rolled out about 2 months ago. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Google is trying to catch up to a certain extent, and either consciously or just because of design constraints, they understand that people are using ChatGPT, and that look is something that people are already getting comfortable with. It's just the way people got very comfortable with how Google looks when you do it just as a search engine. But when you mentioned that they announced before and after, you can tell they rushed it. They had a factual error in one of their examples about the James Webb Telescope, but it's clear that Google understands how popular this is and how popular it's going to be. But for whatever reason, they were moving more slowly, even though a lot of the technology involved in it is something that they have had for a while. The Lambda technology has been around for more than a few months at this point. So it's exciting. It already shows like there's going to be competition in a way that could really accelerate the technology as a whole.
Yeah, I kind of believe that Google would have done something at Google I/O in May, but they wouldn't have gone full force into it. They would have just put out a little bit here and there, and continued this whole gradual rollout. But ChatGPT changed everything. Obviously, they have a significant catalyst in the market. They're losing mind share for sure. There's always this risk that there's now a wedge that they can lose market share. And we have some data too, which is really interesting. So we started with data, talking about OpenAI website traffic, and that's really useful in this market because other than it's just been like, oh, just a lot of YouTube videos, everyone's talking about it, like what do we see? So now we have some data points which are interesting. I think we'll have some more really soon. But then we also have this where we looked at the day before, the day of, and the day after the Microsoft Bing and Edge event, so BingGPT event. If you look at it in terms of the iPhone downloads, Bing was unranked. It was more than 500 deep in the iPhone App Store in terms of volume of downloads. On Tuesday, it popped up to 328. Now, why did that happen? Well, that happened because they actually had a good event. People were very interested in it, but also because when you sign up for the wait list, they say, oh, if you download the Bing app and you download the Edge browser, you will move up in the wait list. And so a lot of people obviously did that. That was an incentive. And by Wednesday, there were articles about this, and news media was all over it. There were videos on YouTube, and they moved up to 10. Now that's like tremendous. Like most of these people weren't even thinking about Bing, and 2 weeks ago or even 5 days ago, and now all of a sudden it's number 10 in the App Store. And if you look at the Microsoft Edge browser, it wasn't quite as bad. It was 124. It moved up to 82. So Microsoft was not on the radar of most people for these types of apps, particularly on iPhone. We can look at other places as well, but all of a sudden they are. And this is one of the hardest things. If you're like small in market share, how do you get people to even know you exist? And then if you do, how do you get them to try it?
Yeah, it's very strange discussing Microsoft as the agile underdog out competing its bigger rival, but that's essentially exactly what happened. They're setting up a base of users that's going to immediately be involved and will immediately be sharing and telling others to download it if as they use it and find new ways to employ the technology. And I just think that so again, it feels strange to imagine that the real clever startup style disruptor is Microsoft, but that's basically what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is that when we were looking at data, we're like, hey, and there's a question here about ChatGPT mobile version. And Synthedia reported like a month ago that there's one in beta. So we actually have screen capture of what it looks like. It's very bare bones, just like ChatGPT is today on the browser. But there are a few early beta testers on a mobile version. So this is all going mobile. And in fact, one of the things that I should have pointed out is OpenAI, their mobile traffic was below 50% in November. It's 65% today, right? And so much of that is people are using ChatGPT on mobile. And you see it like on Twitter, you see like people posting images, you can tell it's from there. But the other thing is we talked about the download of the Microsoft apps. And that's like a real benefit to them because people are paying attention to Microsoft applications again. So we call that the ChatGPT bounce, but it's also helping them out in the financial markets because they roll several percent the day of and the day after. Now, I think the general view is that Google has stumbled in this space. They're late to market, and they lost 100 million in market value. And you'll see this like headlines everywhere because they made this error that you mentioned. It's like, it's not quite that, although that didn't help, right?
It's not just that, but it's definitely.
They had bad earnings. Like people see that they might lose their stranglehold on a $300 million search ad market. But I think like this is a really important thing for us to consider, that Microsoft's going up, Google's going down, even though there's multiple factors at play.
It's also worth mentioning that it has OpenAI has pretty broad coattails. Any company now that announces that they're working with them gets if they're a public company, gets a bump in their stock price. BuzzFeed went up quite a lot just after saying that they were going to start using it. So yeah,
that's absolutely right. And so one of the things I think about is, there's two things I was thinking about. One, Andrew, who's on the Voicebot team, had mentioned earlier, he wonders what the Blake Lemoine, I don't remember. I don't actually know how you say his last name, but the engineer who said Lambda was sentient last year, he was saying, like, I wonder how much that set them back because it made them a little gun shy.
I mean, I'm sure it had some impact, but what it shows is there's a gap between what the average person who's not really using cutting edge technology thinks that AI is capable of, but there's also a gap between what AI is capable of and the idea of sentience. It's not sentience at all. But if somebody's idea of a interactive chatbot is a bare bones customer service chatbot on a random store website, then ChatGPT will appear to be miraculous and feel like you're actually talking
I think the point is just kind of an interesting one. So Google has a different culture than it did before, right? It's much more conservative in terms of the way it rolls things out and the chances that it takes. It does a lot of these moonshots, but then they don't release them to the world. They don't let anyone see it until it's ready. And I think it just raised this specter of trust and safety. And, we have to be really careful. And, we wrote something about it a couple of weeks ago. Sundar did the Code Red. He's got Project Green Lane. They're going to roll out 20 AI-based products this year. This is the first one that we're seeing. APIs are going to be available for Bard for developers next month. We expect to see maybe a consumer rollout around Google I/O in May. So there are these things, but it's just like this catalyst. You feel like it wouldn't have happened without this, and that this idea that the whole conversation around sentience may have slowed it down. And then I think the other big theme is, this is war. And what we've got is OpenAI and Microsoft in one corner, Google on its own in the other corner, and then some other players are going to come in and they're going to join this fight. And I think that's a real question going forward. Is Sundar Pichai a wartime CEO or is he a peacetime CEO? And they're going to have to make some decisions which are uncomfortable coming up, or at least uncomfortable from a cultural standpoint in the way they've been operating. Whereas I kind of feel like Satya has been at war the whole time because Microsoft's been clawing back since the mid 2000s to back to where it was. And he's ready. He's ready. And you can just tell the way they ran that event. He actually had this Steve Jobs aura about him. Not Steve Jobs, but like he's his own. Satya's got it going on, and he was needling Google and some other people during that.
Yeah, it's we talked or we wrote that last week about how Google demonstrated this genuinely impressive generative AI for music and songs, and it's capable of some really impressive things. But because there is a very, very small percentage chance that it will occasionally use already copyrighted music, they're not releasing it to the public and probably won't for the foreseeable future. But again, it's a risk. But if they took that risk, you can guarantee there would be a lot of people really excited to play around with a tool like that.
Absolutely. So there will be some downside, but there'll be some upside as well. Okay. So our intent here is to do this in about 30 minutes each week. And we want to do 3 to 5 stories. We've done essentially 2, but I think of that as one story. This is the top story of the week. So that made a lot of sense. But I did want to hit on 2 other things that I thought were really interesting this week. So first of all, Eric had a couple of stories that posted yesterday around ChatGPT bans. So if you guys want to read that, just go to Voicebot.ai. They're banned in universities and colleges, and you have a separate one on public schools. What's going on there?
Yes. So unsurprisingly, people who have even read about what ChatGPT can do understand that for a lot of basic schoolwork, it can do your work for you. It may not do it super well, and it may make mistakes, but it will absolutely be capable of turning in a long essay very, very quickly. So almost immediately, a lot of primary and secondary schools, especially the US and Australia, have outright banned it from their school servers. and told students not to use it for homework. There are already stories about teachers changing their curricula to shift away from a homework essay to more of an in-class experience or an oral presentation. And then on the at the university level, there have been a few notable universities that have said that they don't want their students to use it. It's less of a ban on the servers and more of a addition to their academic rules about plagiarism, and saying that AI counts as plagiarism. So, for instance, Washington University in St. Louis updated their definition, and one of the most prominent French universities, Sciences Po, banned not just ChatGPT, but basically every AI tool. And one of the top universities in India, RV University in Bangalore, is prohibiting students from using it. It's just going to be a lot of effort around coming up with better policies to address it, for understanding when it's appropriate to use and when it's not. But as I said, right now, there's a sense of it's new and it's capable of anything. And if a student is desperate the night before an essay is due, they're not going to worry too much about it hallucinating some crazy response to a question that is posed to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we've seen in the past with these tectonic shifts in technology is that we have to change not just our assumptions, but what it does is it actually challenges the existing practices, processes, guidelines that we have in place today, and they have to change. And I've actually seen a fairly reasoned discussion about this in universities up until ChatGPT. There are people who are writing about this, which is just around GPT-3. But we're seeing the reactionaries come out. I think it's natural. We're all going to have to adjust. Just think about like what the world was like before the internet, and like, can you use the internet for research? No, that's bad. You must go to the library. I mean, this was like a big thing in the 90s, and it's like sort of ridiculous. Can you use a calculator in class or not? Do you have to do it all by hand? That was something that was big in the 60s and 70s, right? So like, this isn't actually that new. But I definitely understand people's concerns about this, but most likely we're going to see an overcorrection of people trying to protect their existing stranglehold on these processes and activities.
Yeah, although simultaneously that has already begun prompting a growth in an adjacent technology, which is trying to detect when an AI has written something. There's a lot of real interest in that, which there's no perfect solution yet, but it's definitely something that OpenAI and a lot of other people are looking into.
Okay. And by the way, too, we also did a little story in Synthedia. You've covered it as well in Voicebot about these AI checkers. Come on, these things actually don't work. Don't put much stock in them. They may eventually work, but like, for example, the one that OpenAI rolled out in preview is wrong 3 out of 4 times, just in terms of identifying AI generated content. And 1 in 10 times it'll say that it's AI when it's written by a human. And like, that might even be worse depending on the topic and things like that. So I think that's a really important topic. Education has a lot to do here. One more thing that we wanted to do, I actually put in the chat a link to the David Guetta video. Since people couldn't hear it, I don't know if they can hear this. Like, I'll try it right now and see if there's volume. We'll try to play it. Hear that?
Went silent again.
All right. So deepfakes is one of the most popular topics. We see like the views on those stories and Voicebot. Uh-oh. Another David Guetta thing just popped up. Thank you, Google Autoplay or YouTube Autoplay. So we see these like deepfakes are really popular, but like the thing for me that I think is really interesting, it's like he's talking about ChatGPT. That's almost guaranteed. That's what he's talking about. So it's in the popular culture. Deepfakes are in the popular culture. We're breaking down these barriers that like 2 years ago, everyone was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. The AI overlords. And all of a sudden it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's telling that David Guetta, who's a very popular DJ, essentially DJ'd out a deep fake in that he took two different things and combined them. He took probably ChatGPT, asked it to write a Eminem lyrics. He found a voice cloning model that works on Eminem's voice to perform it. And it's not by any means a perfect deep fake, but clearly it didn't take him long. It didn't take him any sort of deep technical knowledge. The average person can do all kinds of amazing deepfakes now, and then the visual elements are there as well. We're seeing more and more of those, and I think that there's going to be a new wave of creativity, for good and bad, of using deepfakes in all kinds of movies and audio and other projects, and it's really exciting. But again, with the caveat of there will be a lot of bad things, and as with the scammers for ChatGPT, there will be plenty of attempts to use it for illicit purposes.
Yeah, of course. But this is just one of the things. We're going to see ChatGPT and The Simpsons this season. Like, it just seems so obvious. It's going to be a Saturday Night Live. It's going to be all these other places because there's enough awareness of it now that it actually makes sense for people to talk about it in popular culture, because like enough people recognize what it is, and it is something that's a big change. And so that's what popular culture should be talking about. Okay, so I understand some of the folks on LinkedIn couldn't actually hear that very well. We'll work on that from an audio standpoint. I'm not sure about sharing on that. There is the video replay, which will be on YouTube. I'll put some links in also to the original videos. And I do recommend people who are here will probably want to watch the Microsoft announcement video and the Google announcement video, even though the Google announcement one, it might be to watch it for the cringe factor. I mean, they even have a point where they're trying to demo it on mobile and they can't find the mobile device. It's like someone removed it from the table.
It was very clearly added to a planned presentation at the last minute.
Yeah, or it was the planned presentation and someone said, oh, this isn't working right now. Better to take it off the table so they don't try to show it and it doesn't work. That would be worse. And I think that's also probably true. But we'll put the links in both for the LinkedIn post and in YouTube so that you guys can watch those. I think you'll find it very instructive. What is going on today is, really significant. And if you're in the conversational AI space, it is the biggest thing that's happened certainly since Alexa, and frankly, it's going to be much bigger. You can just see it. All the people that I'm talking to, the big companies that are getting involved, the individuals who know about it are starting to use it from day to day. So it's exciting. That's why we decided to do this. I think we're going to try to do this about weekly. We'll let people know when this comes up next. Thanks for joining us. We enjoyed that. And I think we'll probably just close that out for today, but I'll jump into LinkedIn as well to carry the chat on that way. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.